Brenner. I am a parent or mother of a deaf adult. He wasn't always an adult. He was a baby who was deaf, a child who was deaf, and I felt it was very important to be able to communicate with Toby. If you can't communicate with your child, how will you know him? How will you understand the things that they do? You can't if you can't communicate with your child. Very, very important. So when about 9 months, when Toby was 9 months old, I thought, he has a hearing problem. He wasn't trying to say words, nothing. And so we have deafness in our family. So I had experienced deafness, but only with adults, not children. So I didn't think Toby was deaf. I thought he had a hearing problem. Hearing. Thank you, Toby. A hearing problem. But I found out when he was 14 months old that he was deaf. Profoundly deaf. So I started signing, took a signing class. The class was so slow. The teacher was just teaching so slow. And I was really motivated because I wanted to be able to communicate with my son. So I bought a sign language book, got my children's golden books, and I taught myself how to sign. And I have 3 other children with Toby, 2 brothers and 1 sister. The sister is 19 months younger than Toby. I always said that God gave me Cam for Toby. And they are so close. So I took a sign language class, very slow. I needed to learn so I could communicate with Toby. And so I basically taught myself how to sign because the teachers in the signing class was just too slow for me. And I needed to learn quickly. I just couldn't take my time. And I want to say right now that it's very, very, very important for parents of deaf children to learn sign. If you can't communicate with your child, how will you know them? How will you know their likes and their dislikes? You can't. If you can't communicate with them. And having a sister or a brother interpret for you is so wrong for you, for the sister or the brother, and for the deaf child. I learned sign, and when my kids asked me to tell Toby something, I would tell them, I'm not Toby's interpreter, I'm his mom. You need to learn sign, not me interpreting for Toby. Because if something happened to me and I died, Toby wouldn't have a family if no one could communicate with him. So I made sure that all of the family could sign. His father, when he lived with us, he learned a little bit of sign, but when he moved, he didn't learn anymore. He couldn't communicate with Toby. Yeah, Toby's father, he left and he didn't know sign, so he couldn't communicate with Toby. They never had a conversation together. He really didn't have any relationship, the two of them. The father would have a relationship with the other kids, but not with Toby. That wasn't fair for Toby. I'm not going to say any more about that because I feel strong about that. I think that parents of deaf children you have to learn to sign. You have to learn to communicate with your child. I think in Sweden that if you have a deaf child and you don't learn sign language, that they say is child abuse. I agree. If you can't have a relationship with your children, that is child abuse. I worked with with deaf children, and many of them did not communicate with their parents. They would have a sister or a brother who would interpret for them. Wrong. It's not fair to the sister, the brother, not fair to the deaf child, and not fair to the parents. The parents, they can't know their child. They just can't. I love to tell the story about Toby when he was in high school. He didn't date deaf girls because he grew up with them. He said, they seem like my sister. I'm not going to date them. But he did date hearing girls. And they would write notes to each other. And the deaf, their English writing skills is not the best. So Toby would write a note to his girlfriend and ask me to correct the English. I love that because I always knew what was going on with Toby and his girlfriends. And that Toby trusted me enough to let me do that. And Toby, he's a very smart boy. Very smart boy. Well, he's an adult. He was so smart. And I had a doctor tell me one time, I never have to worry about Toby because he is so stubborn, he will be able to do anything he wants. And that is true. Toby, he went to high school. He was mainstreamed. He went to college. He went to Gallaudet. He has a doctorate. He has just been very, very successful. It's not because of me. It's not because of other people. It's because of Toby. He wanted to be successful. And he worked hard at that also. And he was very stubborn. Wow. Better now. I made sure that all of the family could sign and communicate with Toby. It's very important for me because I am Toby's mom, not his interpreter. And when my kids would say, tell Toby, I'd say, no, you tell Toby. I'm the mom, not the interpreter. So I made sure that all of the family knew sign language because I always worried that if something happened to me and I died, Toby wouldn't have a family that he could communicate with. So all of his two brothers and his sister, they all know sign language. And they can communicate with him sometimes better than me. Toby's sister and Toby are very, very close. There's 19 months difference. And they grew up together. And my daughter, Toby's sister, she is a teacher now for the deaf. So I really want to add, without crying, that it is so important for parents to learn sign language. Not to depend on sisters and brothers, but you learn sign language. How can you know your child if you can't communicate with them? It's just so very, very important. And one of the first things I did when I found out for sure that Toby was deaf, I took a sign language class. And I have never felt bad about that. I'm very, very happy that I did that. Okay? I wanted to add something that I feel is very important for parents. Not only deaf parents of deaf children, but all parents. I think that as a duty of a parent is that you give your child the opportunity to do or try what they want. And Toby, his older brothers, they played Little League baseball. Little League baseball. Toby wanted to play. I said, okay. So I signed Toby up with his brother, and I paid $25 for each of the boys to play. Against the rules in Little League, and I knew that, but as a mother who has to fight for opportunities for my son, I was willing to pay that and to save the receipt. So the night before they had the draft, the president of the baseball league called me and said, we were thinking, we heard you have a deaf son? I said, yes. So we were thinking that maybe this wouldn't be a good year for Toby to play. I said, no, it's a perfect year. And he said, well, we're thinking it may be a safety problem. I said, no problem. Deaf people, they're more aware of what's going on around them than hearing. Well, we feel it's going to be a communication problem. I said, not a problem. All of Toby's family knows how to sign, and someone will be with Toby at practice every day. So the president continued to find reasons for Toby not to play. Well, I paid registration against the rules, but I paid it. So I told him, if Toby doesn't get to play this year, no one will play, because I will contact Williams Port, the head of Little League Baseball, and I'll explain to them that you are taking registration fees. And I have a copy of my receipt that I will add to that. So let's just say that if Toby can't play, no one will play. So he agreed to that. And Toby was picked on a team. And I have to say, maybe because he's my son, but he was the best player on the team. and the team benefited from Toby being there. One thing I do want to add, and I don't think I've told Toby this before, but be sure and give your child a name sign. I wanted Toby to know how to spell his name, Toby, and he is 53, still has Toby, doesn't have a name sign. So I feel bad about that because his brothers and his sisters all have name signs, but Toby is Toby. So make sure that you give your child a name sign. So anything I need to add? Okay, I really want to encourage you all, if you have a deaf child, please, please learn to communicate with that child. Your life will be better for it. Thank you.